Hello and welcome to Left, Right, Center. I'm Shaun Boyd. It's been a wild week in politics. President Joe Biden announces he's out, scrambling the 2024 presidential race. Biden endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris, who so far has no competition for the nomination. A CBS News poll conducted just before Biden pulled out found in a hypothetical matchup with Trump, Harris did better than Biden, although she still trailed Trump by 3 points. A separate CBS poll done after Biden pulled out found 4 in 10 Democrats are now more likely to vote with Harris as the presumptive nominee. She raised $100 million in the first 24 hours after Biden's endorsement. Joining me are analysts, Republican Dick Wadhams, Democrat Mike Dino. So, Mike, Democrats have had a bit of an enthusiasm problem this year. Based on that poll, seems like Harris might help with this.
It's been a great jolt. I think I got a hotel room at the convention right after the debate, thinking things are going to change, and it was only $300. Now it's up to $550.
Whoa.
So I think people are excited. I mean, I think it's time to really see what we can do as Democrats. The biggest change, I think, is that everybody got in line quickly, got behind her, and last night we had the endorsement by President Obama.
Right. Unity in the party, because it was a bit of disarray.
Yes, definitely. It was chaos.
Yeah. Another CBS poll that just came out had Harris up by 7 points in New Hampshire, too.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is this is kind of a honeymoon period.
Right.
And as Dick knows, there's a lot going to be coming at her.
So, Dick, Trump says Harris is worse than Biden and has called her a radical left lunatic, while she says he's a sexual predator, fraudster, and cheat. So, it's going to be a campaign of personal attacks, and what's the upshot of that?
They might be both right.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you, I wouldn't use the lunatic. I do think, though, that she is much more liberal than Joe Biden was instinctively. Joe Biden became kind of a left-wing president, but I don't think he started out that way 50 years ago when he was elected to the Senate. But what strikes me, Shaun, is the euphoria that you kind of alluded to among Democrats. And it really showed how depressed they were, and they did not want Joe Biden to be their nominee. They were all putting up the great face, oh, yeah, Joe's our guy. But down deep, they knew he was a loser, and they really didn't want him to run again. And so it's really, I was with a group of Democrats earlier this week, and the palpable joy in their face was unbelievable. And I'm thinking, you wouldn't have had that on a week ago. So anyway.
But, as you've said, this election is going to be tight. And in a tight election, enthusiasm is huge. It's going to be about turnout.
Yeah,
really.
and you're already seeing some of the black voters that had been kind of moving to Trump have kind of returned.
Right.
No, but Mike's right. Honeymoons don't last, but it's going to be a tough campaign.
So, Mike, a lot of names are being floated for Harris's running mate, most of them white men. I keep reading how Harris needs a VP who brings balance to the ticket or has a broad appeal. Does she really need a white man as her running mate, or should she go with someone who appeals to the left flank? And Polis doesn't seem to be on the short list. We don't see him on your screen here,
but he's on the list.
But his name is still floated by some. So your thoughts?
Well, as I've said previously, I really feel strongly about a swing state vice presidential candidate. And so out here in the West, we have Arizona and Senator Mark Kelly, who's got a great resume. And then in the blue wall states, we have Pennsylvania and Governor Josh Shapiro. And he also has a little bit of a more moderate background. He supports things like school vouchers and happens to be Jewish, too, so that helps. And then in North Carolina, Roy Cooper, the governor there. So I'm kind of honing in on those 3 states and the people that come from those states.
Why not Gretchen Whitmer?
I think she'd be great. I mean, and it would be, it comes down to this. I mean, is it going to be a campaign about we just don't want Trump, or do we want Kamala Harris and her VP? I mean, and I don't know where it's going to come down on that yet. And if it comes down on we just don't want Trump, she probably has some flexibility on who she picks for VP.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Speaking of VP, Dick, Trump's VP, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, is coming under fire for remarks he made back in 2021. He said the country was being run by a bunch of childless cat ladies. He also has supported a nationwide ban on abortion, although now he says he agrees with Trump it should be left to the states. Vice presidents usually have very little impact on a race, but you know, again, this one is expected to be close. So did Trump pick the wrong running mate, and how much could that impact this race?
Well, it does raise the question: how much vetting did they do of J.D. Vance and all the others? By the way, remember what happened back in 1972 when the McGovern campaign did not vet Senator Eagleton from Missouri, and they found out that he had been under psychiatric treatment. Now, today that would not be a big deal, but back then it was, and they dumped the guy and found a new VP. Listen, Vance, they're going to find more controversial statements out there. But I also think that he does bring something to the ticket. As I've said before, Trump needs to get back those blue-collar Democrats in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania who voted twice for Obama, once for, and then Trump, and then Biden, and he's got to get them back. I still think Vance is a attribute on that, and I agree with Mike. I think it's got to be somebody who goes to those states. But so I don't know, Vance. Listen, if these things still keep coming, I mean, it could be a problem for Trump.
Do you see him dropping him at some point, or no?
No, not unless something really egregious comes out, but I don't think that's going to happen.
So, Mike, Trump is already tying Harris to Biden's record, especially on immigration, since the president put her in charge of the border. Will Harris want Biden, do you think, to campaign for her? He has said he would, he will. And what about other Democrats around the country, like a Caraveo, for example?
Sure. Well, two areas that I think the president helps is Pennsylvania, and so I think we'll see him there. And he's still very good with older voters. I mean, he never really lost popularity with older voters. And so I think there will be places in the swing states where that will be a plus. As far as other Democrats, probably not. I mean, you know, in our state, with Congresswoman Caraveo in a very competitive state, she might like to see the president come in, but we're going to be a flyover state because I think there's no reason for a presidential visit, but from a candidate for the presidential campaign. But Biden will help definitely in Pennsylvania and with older voters.
So, Dick, Trump's campaign released a statement saying they wouldn't commit to another presidential debate until Democrats have honed in on their nominee, until they know who that person is. And, you know, they suggested that former President Barack Obama wants somebody else. And so, you know, the Democrats could change their mind. They haven't agreed on Harris. The former President Obama and Michelle have both now come out with a ringing endorsement of Harris. What is going on here? Does Trump not want a debate, do you think? I mean, I would think it would benefit Harris more than it benefits him, since she's getting into the race late.
Yeah, maybe. I think Trump's smart to hold off until that convention happens, and he doesn't need to commit to anything yet. But I think he's going to have to debate her. She is a former prosecutor. You would assume that she could do well in a debate. But in order, I think both of these candidates have got to show what they're made of and what I do think this. I think both of these candidates are going to be honed in on trashing the other's morals and background. And one of them has got to finally come to grips with the fact the American people want to hear what you want to do as president. The first candidate who really starts talking about that is going to win this election. And right now, neither one of them are. I mean, she calls him all those names you mentioned earlier, and he's trashing her. And we've got to one of them has got to get beyond that. We'll see if it happens.
I can't imagine.
Well, and let's not forget, though, you know, the Dems are still going to go ahead to do a early roll call in the first week of August.
Right.
And so he won't have to, you know, Trump won't have to wait till the convention.
No, he also wants the network to change. He wants Fox News to be have the moderators for this debate, which I don't see it probably switching. Mike, 6 House Democrats, including Colorado Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo, voted on a resolution this past week condemning the Biden administration and, quote, the border czar, Kamala Harris, for failing to secure the border. She voted for that, she and the other 5, and they're all from swing districts. Caraveo is the only one, though, of those 6 who has endorsed Harris. I don't get it. What's going on here?
Well, she'll have a tough race. As a freshman, it's a very competitive district. It really doesn't favor one party over the other at all. And this isn't the first time. She voted with the Republicans in the House on a farm bill that really there's no Democrats that thought that was a good bill to vote on. But she's on the Ag Committee, and she thought, you know.
Cut snap.
Yeah.
By tens of millions of dollars.
Exactly. And a lot of, and people have been carrying, you know, said when she was in the legislature, these were things she supported. So she's obviously looking out for her reelection. It's an important seat for the Dems to have a chance to get the U.S. House of Representatives.
It could come down to that race, in fact. But you can't have it both ways. I mean, you say, I think she's the failed border czar, but at the same time, I endorse her, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a lot on the national front, but here in the metro area, we also heard from Denver Mayor Mike Johnston as he marks 1 year in office. We'll dive into that when we return here on Left, Right, Center. Welcome back to Left, Right, Center. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston delivered his first State of the City address this past week, saying he's made dramatic progress and will make an even greater impact in the coming year. He says all of the city's problems are solvable. His critics wonder, at what cost? The city is on track to spend $155 million on homelessness by the end of the year and $74 million on migrants. For the second year in a row, the mayor is asking city agencies to cut their budgets and is proposing a $100 million sales tax increase to pay for affordable housing. Apparently, some city council members aren't on board with Johnston's tax hike proposal just yet. According to Axios, the Safety and Housing Committee felt it was rushed, lacked community outreach, and they're worried about the impact of the sales tax increase on residents. They voted against sending it to the full council for now. So, Mike, should the mayor postpone this, putting this on the ballot at this point? You know, is it too much, you know, considering we've got, it's not well defined, and then, you know, we've also got these other ballot measures. We've got, you know, Denver Health and RTD and DPS. It could endanger some of those, particularly the Denver Health one.
Well, I think he's got 2 choices. One, maybe postpone it to another time, but 2, better define it. I think that's what we heard from City Council was this needs a lot more meat on the bone compared to what you know, if you're asking $100 million for a year, and it's a 0.5% sales tax increase. So I hope they come up with more details, because Denver clearly is in need of more affordable housing. I think the mayor has said developers need some assistance to pay for the cost of housing to build more of the affordable type.
Do you think that Denverites, and they're a generous bunch, but you know, this is a lot, quite a few tax proposals at a time when cost of living is higher. So do you see them saying, okay, I'll go with affordable housing, but I'm not going to do Denver Health too? So one passes, one fails. Yeah,
no, they may be picking and choosing. And of course, the state ballot's going to have the property tax question, which puts that front and center, and people remember those bills. So there's a lot on the plate for Denver voters. They've been generous. They didn't, under Hickenlooper, they voted for everything. Under Hancock, they only voted against one item, and so we'll see.
Yeah. So, Dick, I interviewed Johnston after his address, and I asked him about the 16th Street Mall, where businesses have gone through COVID, homelessness, damage during the George Floyd protests, and now going on 3 years of construction down there. He would not commit to financial assistance, saying there are other ways of helping these businesses. So I wonder how many are even going to be left by the time this mall reopens. And the problem with them, you know, people might say, well, yeah, if you're not doing well, leave. You know, we've had a lot of national chains, businesses that have closed down there. A lot of them are locked into long-term leases that they can't get out of despite bleeding money at this point.
You know, other than the 2008 National Convention that Mike Dino ran, I can think of, frankly, nothing that Denver does well when it comes to projects. I mean, the
Great
airport,
Hall.
the airport was a disaster. I mean, I honestly, and this is the latest example. I think it was poorly timed. It shouldn't have been started to begin with in the middle of COVID, and the inability of him to grasp the plight of these people in the 16th Street Mall, I think, is appalling. I don't come downtown that often to that part of the downtown, but I was there this week, and I stood there and I looked at that and I said, how do these people survive this? And I think you've answered the question. So I don't know. I just don't understand the callousness of that response. I don't understand why Denver cannot get its act together. I mean, a long time ago, I wrote about how when Bill Owens was governor, that massive project on I-25 in the Southeast Corridor came in under budget and quicker than it was supposed to. I know it can be done, but Denver seems to not be able to do it, and I don't understand why.
This is T-Rex?
T-Rex.
Yeah, right.
T-Rex.
I remember that. I've been around long enough.
That's right.
So, Mike, Johnston announced a new volunteer program and a new public safety, he calls it trust patrols. For neighborhoods. He seems to come up with a new idea every week, really. But nothing is free. He says his wife is going to help with this volunteer program. But, you know, undoubtedly, the city workers are going to be tapped to do the heavy lifting on this, even as departments are being asked to cut their budgets now. So is he asking too much?
There could be a tipping point. I mean, it is, he's very dynamic, very energetic mayor. I think we've talked about, you know, homelessness has been a big focus. Certainly the immigrants kind of piled on that. And so I think he's looking at trying to figure out what is something I can pivot to. And so that's why we see a lot of ideas. It is taxing to his staff and to the city employees. I do want to touch on one other thing. Denver had a big success with their convention center expansion. It came in on budget, on time, and of course tourism is at a record high.
Okay, here we go. Mike Dino.
Yeah, maybe.
So, Dick Johnston, you know, speaking of this volunteer program, he not only wants Denverites to give more money for affordable housing, he wants them to give 5 hours a month for this volunteer program to help with various city projects. How do you see this going over?
You know, overall on that sales tax increase, sales taxes are the most regressive taxes of all. The lower down the economic ladder you go, the more impact they have, negative impact on people. And it's, particularly in this day of inflation and higher property taxes, I don't understand why he's doing. And once again, what is the timing of this? And so I just don't understand it. And then to ask city employees to volunteer, fine, that's great. But I do not think a city employee should be penalized for not volunteering.
No, these are residents. He's asking. He's saying everybody who lives in the city, because I don't know if they're doing layoffs in the city and they need some help with some of these projects.
City employees have been asked to do over and above, I think, you know, some of what they expected too.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, you know, that also suggests that he doesn't fully understand people are busy trying to make a living. I mean, with raising their families, trying to keep their jobs, paying their property taxes and paying these sales taxes. I don't know. I just think it's easy for a guy like him to say that. And I like Mayor Johnston. I do. But I think sometimes, just like that other issue we talked about, it's just callous. It's just like you don't understand.
Asking too much, maybe.
Yeah.
Mike, I've heard from a number of prominent Democrats who are very concerned about the city's budget and especially the spending on homelessness. Is this sustainable?
It's going to be hard to sustain, but I think Denver residents have got an idea. It takes a lot of money to address homelessness.
Right.
I mean, it really does. If you really want to see the tents go away, the encampments go away, people come out off the streets in downtown, you got to spend a lot of money. And so they're going to have to reconcile that.
And I will say it's a lot better downtown now than it was. I will acknowledge that,
But I think it's the long term, what we see. And the Denver Gazette did some analysis and said only 2 out of every 10 who go into temporary housing get into permanent housing. So you want to see what the long-term success rate of this is, too. And I think I think that's where Denverites
It's
are
hard
going to
to
be
quantify.
looking. Yeah.
If you take your $155 million number, divided by 2,000, you're in at about 80,000 a year per homeless person. And that's hard to sustain.
Right. So, Dick, Johnston claims that there is wide support, that they've done some polling. There's wide support for this affordable housing proposal. But a Magellan survey recently found more than a third of Denver voters think that taxes are already too high in the city, and 50% of them disapprove of the job that Johnston is doing right now. So maybe now is not the time to ask, although then again, you know, Denver voters haven't met a tax increase, most tax hikes that they don't like, so I don't know.
Well, when I think when voters see all this money pumped into homeless, I think they wonder, wait a minute, why is this on the ballot now? And this could be his stock show arena issue that nailed Hancock. And people might just say, no, I'm going to say no to this. I'm not opposed to affordable housing, but I'm opposed to this right now. We really don't know what it is. And this resistance within the city council was pretty significant too. So we'll see if maybe the council will vote it down. Maybe they'll say, no, we're not going to do it.
Yeah,
so
we'll see. I think you're right. They are looking, you know, we want some more specifics on this.
And we do have the city budget for next year coming up, and there's going to be a lot of debate on council. They have some priorities that the mayor doesn't have.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching Left, Right, Center. We'll see you next time.